with Ryan Ries. This is Live with Ryan Ries. Call now 1-888-564-6173 or post your questions using the hashtag #LiveRyanReese on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
Well, tonight is a big night for me. I have my wife in studio, Crystal Ries, and we're going to be talking about this project she's been working on for the past couple months, this children's book. But it's exciting for me because she's not about getting on the radio and doing any of this kind of stuff. So for her to be here today, Sean, with us, this is like, I'm a little nervous, I'll be honest.
I think it's going to be great. I think a lot of people have been anticipating this lately too, because we're going to be sharing about some very important subjects that I believe is going to minister to a lot of people. And that's why we're doing it, is open up this amazing story. We do hope it's going to be an encouragement as we kind of chop it up here with Crystal and Ryan, them just kind of being transparent on the journey they've gone through over this last year. And through it all, maybe on the other end of the second part of the show, we'll be taking your phone calls. So as you hear things, as we're talking about it, you can start calling in and just getting in line, and we'll love to talk to you. The number is 888-564-6173. Again, the number is 888-564-6173. And you can watch us live at ryan-reese.com.
Yes, and that's the people that we want calling in tonight are people that have dealt with infertility, that have struggled to get pregnant and just different things in and even with their marriage. It affects so many different areas in one's walk. I mean, just on the way up here, we heard a couple stories of there was a girl that we were meeting with earlier. She was talking about her niece, and she got pregnant. She couldn't get pregnant naturally, and she went through some of the infertility treatments, and she got pregnant with quads, and literally lost the quads at, I think, was it 26 weeks? And then she lost another kid, and it was just, this is common. Yeah. This is a common story that happens with a lot of different women, and there's so many different areas so many different things that could happen that would not allow you to get pregnant. So this is a big subject for a lot of women. So if that's you and you want to call in and talk to Crystal later on, we're gonna talk about her story right now, but we want to give out the number again, 888-564-6173. That's 888-564-6173. Well, for some of you guys that don't know, Crystal Ries, she's my wife. I've been married to her for about 3 years and a half, I think now. And during this amazing marriage, we went through some pretty gnarly storms. But Crystal, I would like you to give your perspective on what it was like when you met me, how we met, because I have my story.
Yeah, you tell the real story.
Because I'm a wild man, but you're a little bit more conservative. So what was the story really like?
Okay, so a friend brought me to church, Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, and I sat in the back of Shine, which is a Saturday night service at the time, and I'm sitting back, and it's all dark, and all of a sudden this guy with long hair comes up on stage, and he starts talking about porn and sex and all these uncomfortable, just kind of awkward topics that I have never heard spoken in church before. So I kind of looked around just to see if everyone else was uncomfortable like me, and nobody was. So anyways, that was my first kind of introduction to Ryan, and then met him after a couple group dates. And
what was that like?
Interesting. Very interesting.
So like, were you attracted at all? I mean, I don't know. I know I liked you. Like, I was like, who's that girl, And then you just vanished.
Yeah.
Till like 4 months later, and then you came back to church.
Well, I was living in New York, so I was coming back and forth to work and see the family and everything here, and finally I think you worked up the courage to ask me out on a date, because there's difference. There's like Christian dates, which is like group dates, and then there's like alone dates, but so I had to learn how that all worked.
So our first date was like 100 people.
Yeah, it was.
And pizza.
Yep.
And then we got married.
That quickly, yes.
We got, how long?
Probably like 5-6 months in total.
And then it was a done deal.
Done deal.
Best decision I ever made. I don't know about
too.
you, but for me it was great.
I'm good.
Are you sure?
That doesn't sound convincing enough. I'm sorry.
Well, we got married, and we were married for about a year and a half, and then we decided to have kids.
Yes. So we, Ryan's a little older.
Crystal, I'm like 2 years older than you. I'm 23.
So, it was about the time to have the conversation, and we talked about lots of different things, adoption, not having kids. We had gone to the doctors at that point and kind of found out that we couldn't get pregnant naturally. So, we were just exploring our options. But the one thing through this whole kind of
what were
conversation,
some of the options?
well, adoption was, we talked through that. We talked about not having kids. I mean, we were so busy at the time, doing ministry and reaching out to kids. And, it was like, well, we could just be mentors to all these kids that need help out there. Why do we need our own? We just started to justify why we, maybe God didn't want us to have kids of our own.
And we had, we hang out with my nieces and nephews a lot, and we were like, we have them.
Right.
If we can't have kids, we'll just make them our kids.
Well, yeah, and we didn't want the infertility to turn into like our God, right? Because it takes a toll on you every month when you do that pregnancy test and it comes negative, and you're like, what else? Can I do? It's
like an emotional roller coaster.
You feel like a total failure, and you're like, but why? And then you try to tell your friend, over coffee, what you're going through, and they're like, can't even relate because they didn't go through it. So you just feel more alone, and it's just really hard. And then you have to also count your blessings during that, because you can isolate yourself, you can get depressed, and you also have to realize like what God has blessed you with. So like my husband, I mean, I have to be thankful that, God brought Ryan into my life. And if we don't have kids, I should just be thankful that I have an amazing husband.
Right.
And just to spend my life with. So, we talked through all that.
I want to go back to when we talked about, when you mentioned you didn't want to make it your God.
Yeah.
And let me break that down a little bit more so the listeners can understand. When it says like your God is like, we didn't want this to become the center focus of our life, so we get our eyes off of God. Like Jesus Christ is our Lord and our God, and we follow him. But we weren't going to put, this pregnancy, trying to get pregnant in front of everything else, because there's many stories, and maybe you are one of the stories of, we've heard so many stories of like marriages falling apart because the girl, I mean, you've talked to a couple girls where they were obsessed with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about something?
Or just spending years and years and years going through it, and it like I was saying, it takes a toll on you. It is so emotional. It's so hard to even describe the feeling of like just hurt, and you feel like it's something that you're doing, but it's not your fault, And so like I just would just feel for all these stories over and over again of just these women that struggled or were miscarrying, or and they felt like they were trying to do everything they could to have this child, but it just wasn't working out for them, and they'd blame themselves, and then you'd isolate and you'd get depressed, and just to go through that every month over and over again for years, I only went through it for like 6 months, and I was just like, I'm done. Like, I would rather just not even try at all than to have to, do that every month over and over again.
So here you go. You have people that they just get married, and they're, say they're in a scenario like us. They're married for like a year and a half. They're happily married. It's amazing. And then all of a sudden your marriage, I mean, the whole thing your marriage gets affected by this, because now the husband, me looking at Crystal going every month, going through this, it's like it does affect. And then basically if she kept focusing on it and we couldn't have kids and we kept focusing over and over, she would spiral, like just become depressed. Then that would affect the marriage. And then you hear about people breaking up their marriages. Yeah. It didn't work out. I mean, there's story after story.
Oh, it brings a big testing. There was a friend of mine that I know, and they went through this. It was a long time. It was like 9 years actually. And it was just crazy, intense, and all the things that you're talking about right now, Crystal, the up and down, the roller coaster of emotions, the awkwardness or the testing of where maybe another friend gets pregnant and it's like, you want to be happy for them, but then it's like these other emotions, like, that should be me,
yep.
And all those things are just real emotions. And I think what you just said a minute ago, I think is key, is because what you're saying is you needed to come to a place of contentment, where it's like, okay, God has changed my life. He has brought me into marriage and start giving thanks for all the things that you do have in your life. And I believe that's where victory happens in all areas of our life. That's where you give it over to the Lord, and Lord, if you want us to have a child, we're going to have a child. And if it's your will, not my will, all that kind of stuff, that's where you find peace. Because this can be with a situation like this with infertility and children. It can also go and do other areas of life too, where you're like, Lord, like, I'm giving you my heart, I'm giving you my life, and if you would just do this one thing for me, But it's a place of testing, and testings are always for a purpose, and I know that's what you guys are going to be talking about here tonight.
And what you just said about, getting to that place where you tell God, it's not my will, but thy will be done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key to our Christian walk, is to get our will and put it on the sidelines and say, God, thy will. We want your will to be carried out in our life. And that's where we decided as a family unit going, God, we would love kids. I would love little crystals to be running around. But if it's not your will, then we don't want it. So even though it was a hard decision between us, we got to the point and just said, hey, thy will be done, and that's it. So but back to the story, we couldn't get pregnant naturally.
Yeah, we couldn't get pregnant naturally, so we started, talking to a couple doctors, some fertility clinics. We, got referred to some amazing doctors, and we started going through the infertility process, and that alone is horrible. I mean, sitting in those waiting rooms in those fertility centers.
Let's say that.
I mean, it's right out of a movie. It's just it's very hard, and you just kind of go through it together. And so we did, and then shortly after a couple months of fertility treatments, we got pregnant with twins.
Fraternal twins.
Fraternal twins. So we go in, we're told we have twins. We go in a couple weeks later, and they found a third baby. We have triplets. And that's when the fear set in. Right away, the doctor was like, I'm not going to give you the photos for your 3 babies because there's really a 50-50 chance that the third one's going to make it. And we're going to probably have to put you on bed rest. And just, we went from, oh my gosh, this is so exciting, to, oh, great, are these babies even going to survive? And now it's like, your life's in danger. These 3 babies are in danger. We gotta figure this out.
That got really sketchy when I started reflecting back on that. Is that, like Crystal said, we went in and we had the fraternal twins, and just so people they need to understand how the triplets happen. We had fraternal twins, which is 2 eggs. And then what happened is on our second appointment, one of the eggs split a week late into identicals. And then the doctor said there's this thing called vanishing twin syndrome, where if an egg splits and basically the majority of the time it dies out, it's very common. But what happened is they didn't give us the pictures like Crystal said. And they said, come back in 2 weeks and we'll let you know if the baby catches up or not. So now we're going home.
Yeah, I was in shock. It took me a while to kind of just wrap my head around everything. And Ryan's like calling his mom, and Dad is like, pray, like everyone pray, the church pray. And I'm like, okay, yeah, yes. I'm just trying to still wrap my head around everything. And so that's what we did. We just prayed. We asked everyone to pray for this third little baby to catch up and, get that heartbeat keep going. And sure enough, we came back and baby C had caught up. So we were having triplets. And so that's...
I remember from an outsider's perspective, it was actually here when me and Ryan were just about to do a show, or maybe we just ended the show, and he was like, don't let anyone know right now, but I just want you to pray. And it was this scenario. It was triplets, and everything was taking place because, like you were saying, it's like you're dealing with all these emotions of uncertainty. Are they going to make it? How many people should we tell? Should we keep it close? Well, we want people to pray. There's all these different things that you guys were going through at that time that I think a lot of people can connect with and relate to too, maybe if they find themselves in that same scenario.
Yep.
Yeah, we want to, if you're going through any of these things, please call in and we'll pray with you. If you got any questions, we don't even have to name your name. You could just call in the 888-564-6173. Now, another thing too, Crystal, is when you were so we hear that you have triplets, and then that opened up a whole nother storm. So you go home, and now you're on bed rest. I mean,
Well, a couple of weeks after we had a scare, and so rushed to the doctor's office, and they put me on bed rest. And it's
And it was
not
pretty early,
yeah,
right?
super early. I think it was like 15 weeks or something. I don't even remember.
It was
but it was
six-
so early.
It was like 16 weeks. They
yeah.
basically said that we were
early.
going to lose.
Yeah.
They said that we were going to lose all 3 kids at 16 weeks.
Yeah.
So picture from 16 weeks to 33 weeks, or when did you have the kids?
34 weeks and 3 days.
So from 16 weeks all the way to 34 weeks, Crystal was on bed rest, and they said that any second we could lose them.
Yeah, and I didn't know what the definition of bed rest was. So the doctor had to literally explain bed rest to me. He's like, "No, you cannot move." And I'm like, "I'm
You're
sorry."
like, do you know who I'm married to?
Well, when I heard bed rest, I
Exactly.
go, Crystal, you could sit home. Not that she's this kind of person anyway, because she's active. Sit home, watch TV, and kick back. No, bed rest means you have to lay down.
Yeah.
And you have to have like your hips like in the air. It's like you're
Right.
playing against
Not
gravity here.
Yeah, and just those numbers. I mean, 16 weeks is about 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you're going on strict bed rest for another few months, 3 to 4 months, 3.5
Yep.
months or whatever. Wow.
Yep.
Life changer.
Yep.
Things are going fast, it
Yep.
sounds like.
Had to quit my job. Couldn't go do anything I loved. I just was basically like in this house every single day. The only time I could ever leave was to go to a doctor's appointment, but I hated going to the doctors because they were going to probably tell me something bad. So I would cry on the way to the doctor's office. Sorry, Ryan had to hear me every week because I didn't have to.
I had
'cause
earplugs.
But it's just so sad because you're like, water in the kidneys and,
Yeah.
I mean, it was like everything. Oh, baby C's not growing this week. And you're just like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to hear this week? Like,
No.
so
Yeah, that's
it was just really hard to like know that every outing was, we're just praying for some good news until we had to go to the hospital and have the babies.
But then Jesus shows up,
Right.
which is the best part of the whole
Yes,
story.
Yes.
During this time, as we get, okay, so we basically get to a point where we get the bad news, where the doctor says, you guys are going to lose the kids. Our specialist, he's actually, he's out here in Orange County. He's a Jew that became a Christian. So what is that called? Messianic Jew. Yeah. So he basically, we're sitting at their office, and literally they're full on Christians. We all come into the room together, and literally the wife starts crying. Janine, the wife starts crying. I didn't know we were giving names out.
I'm sorry, I just have to. They're just so great.
Yeah, well, heck yeah. Dr. Kurtzman
Yeah,
is the
and-
specialist.
and
Find him in Orange County. He's the man.
They're awesome.
So we're sitting there, and she's crying, and he's telling us, we think we're gonna lose the kid. So it's intense at this point. I mean, when you're here in this situation and they're shedding a tear, they know stuff that we don't know, but they're telling us. That's when we all just prayed, and I remember we all held hands in there, and we all just prayed together for God to show up. And then we left, and then my mom ended up.
She had that vision.
My mom called. How'd that go down, Crystal?
It was just kind of it was a hard day. And so we got a call from your mom, and she's like, I had this vision. And we're like, what is it? And it was just this perfectly timed, encouraging vision that as she told us, I could just see it in a children's book. I could just see every little, eyelid, the eyelids and the eyes and the hair of the triplets. And I just could see it all like play out. And it encouraged us. And it basically what she was saying was that, look, these babies are in a storm right now. You guys are in a storm right now, but God is holding these babies in the palm of his hand. And you guys are going to be just fine. And they're going to be just fine. And so it was just like, okay, we're getting all this bad news, but we're going to somehow make it through because God's got us. And that was it. And so we just felt encouraged, and, we kept going.
And how precise God is, well, because he is God. He didn't create the heavens and the earth, and that's what he does. It was 3:00 in the morning. My mom woke up in the middle of the night, and she just was looking out of her bed, and she had a vision. Like when you hear about the prophets, they had visions all through the Bible. Paul even had a vision, of heaven. But she just saw, it was like Crystal said, but it was, I'm going to break it down a little bit more in detail. It was, she saw a stormy sea, and she saw a boat, like a boat from Jesus's times. And it was floating on the stormy, stormy sea. And in it was the triplets. And one of them, the one that was standing up, looking over the boat with the hands over it, had brown hair. And then the other two had blonde hair. Okay. And in this vision, what happened is the boat ended up transforming into Jesus's hand. So that was the story that basically the vision that my mom had. And interesting enough, Sadie has brown hair, and the two identicals have blonde hair.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And this was out like, 16 weeks, 17 weeks.
Yeah.
God's in the details.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Dude, so on point.
when I hear you talk about that, and I was thinking about this earlier, where it's like when we're in the midst of like a trial or a storm, or we feel like we can't go much further, it's really at those times that God sometimes gets you just enough to get by, like an encouraging moment, like in your life. And that's what you're talking about right now. There was a story I was reading in the book of Acts, Acts 18, where Paul was tested. He had been thrown in prison. He's just like, man, I'm about to, you know that he's probably at a dark place, because he's been tested so many times. He's been thrown in prison so many times. He's been beaten so many times. And a lot of times when the Bible says, do not be afraid or be encouraged, it's usually the person that's being spoken to is discouraged, is fearful. And the Lord appeared to Paul in that time in Acts 18. Let me show you what it says. It says this, but Paul, by night, by a vision, the Lord said, do not be afraid, but speak and do not keep silent, for I am with you. No one will attack you or hurt you, for I have many people in the city. It was just a moment of encouragement. Look, you're going to make it through this point in your life right now. You know, right now you feel like maybe throwing in the towel or giving up, but I still have more plans for you. And the Lord does that in our lives. And I think that this story of what Ryan and Crystal have gone through can impact many people's life, of going through testings and a trial, and how a testing can turn into a blessing in some ways, and how God can truly turn it out for good. And I think that's an amazing thing that we need to be able to see. You know, maybe you find yourself right now, you're married, and, you know, you guys are struggling. You want to have children. It's not happening. Maybe you're going through all these different options. Adoption, should we go to, look to an infertility clinic of some sort, or something, or maybe you just feel stressed out. You don't want to do anything. You need encouragement tonight. You're going through a testing like this. We'd love to talk to you, talk to Crystal and Ryan and myself, and just to encourage you or where you're at in your relationship with the Lord and what's taking place right now. But the cool thing about this, I know Crystal's going to share, she's sharing a little bit right now, is it inspired a book. Share with us a little bit about the book, the title, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so the name of the book it's the Ries triplets, and it's called The Adventure of the Stormy Sea. And like I said, it's taking, Ryan's mom's vision, and it's just putting it in a book that kids can read and understand. It's a board book, so they can chew on it.
Put it up here so they can see it. Yeah.
And it's beautiful. The illustrator is Jordan Clark, and I met her through Lacey Sturm, and she, I remember she wrote she drew some illustrations for Lacey's book, and when I saw her Lacey's book, I was just like, who is this illustrator? She's just it's so whimsical and it's just beautiful and really sweet. So she was available, total God thing, and she was able to make this happen, and we just printed it, and we printed a limited amount of copies, just because we just wanted to get it out there. But this book is not for profit for us. This is basically all the profit from the books are going into printing more books for hospitals and schools. So we have. So
after you buy certain amounts, then there's like a chunk of them that are going for free to the NICUs. They're going to children's hospitals.
Yep, locally.
Yeah.
Everything will be in California area. So we're working on that now, and they'll be just free for families that need the encouragement for, new moms and dads. And it's just a really sweet, encouraging, just like a love story.
I love it.
Well, where can they purchase them besides on my website at ryan-reese.com?
So they can get them there. I'll be at Calvary Chapel Golden Springs for the 10 and the noon service
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow
Oh, very
morning,
cool.
and then at Shine tomorrow night at 6. And if or ryan-reese.com. Exactly.
So Shine is also at Calvary Chapel Diamond Bar at, what time is it at?
6 p.m.
6 p.m. So we'll be there for all the services and selling these books and just hanging out. If you want to come down and meet Crystal, and Sean will be there too. We'll be hanging out.
Yep. And my verse for this whole project has been Romans 8:28. It's just pretty much encompasses.
I think that's fitting.
Yep.
And what is that verse? You want to tell the listeners?
All things work together for good for those who love Christ, right? I'm sorry,
According
I'm
to
just
his
off
purpose.
the cuff.
You know what's amazing? That's it.
According to his purpose, yes.
You know
That's
what's
it.
amazing is I was listening to Papa Chuck today, and he was talking about just how like you could go through these storms, you can go through these things in your life, but God is working out His eternal purpose for your life. And if you could see the future and know what He's doing, He's working in your life, so you're ready for whatever He has for you in the future. And even though it might be hardships or tough times, we can't see the future, but He knows. So it's nothing compared to what He has for us in the future.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to that verse, all things work together for good for those that love Christ according to His purpose. So you have to be aligned with His purpose. You have to be following Him to have that verse applied to you. Because if you're not following God, then you can't apply that verse to your life.
I love that verse, and the verse that comes right after it actually goes on and explains it even more. It says what the purpose is: to conform us into the image of His Son. That's the purpose. It's to shave off some rough areas of our life. It's to test us sometimes through fire, to prepare us for things that He has for us in the future. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 and 2 talk about like the testings that we go through, the sufferings we go through. Sometimes God uses it where I'm like, look, I made it through this. And you encourage other people. That's what this book is doing. That's how God, He wants to use us in very practical ways. There's a lot of hurting people out there. There are a lot of people that are being tested in their marriage and having children and going through raising children. I know we're going to get into some of these things as well because now that the children are here, right? I mean, how old are they now?
10 and a half months.
10 and a half months. Time's gone by so quick. And for those that are tuning in, we're going to talk about what's going on now, raising these triplets,
Are we?
being married.
We got 30 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some of these things because this is now the reality. Everything's changed, and I think the listening audience would like to gain a lot of understanding of what you guys are going through, and I'm sure it can be encouragement to a lot of people. If you're tuning in right now, this is Live with Ryan Ries. Want to always remind you that you can go to ryan-reese.com to look at all of our past podcasts, all of Ryan's studies that are there, his I Am Second stuff, a lot of cool stuff. Obviously, we were just talking about The Adventure on the Stormy Sea, the book that Crystal Ries just got done doing, and she's going to be at all the services tomorrow, or the 10 a.m. and the 12 p.m. services at Calvary Chapel Golden Springs tomorrow, as well as Shine at 6 p.m. at Calvary Chapel Golden Springs as well.
Guess what? We're going to start airing Shine on the radio right after this show. The Bible studies will be coming on immediately after.
Yep.
So the teachings of Shine will be on the air. Yeah.
Amazing.
Psych.
Yeah, another thing too, for all those that follow the Whosoevers, continue to do so. Follow on any of the social media platforms, outlets. Go to thewhosoevers.com to be keep up with all the product that's coming out. The product, all that is purchased, it goes back into the vision of what the Whosoevers is. The Kill the Noise Tour is something that Ryan and his team's been going out to the high schools and they've been given so many opportunities. And another way they have a vision of you being a part of this vision. Maybe you're not able to go. Maybe this isn't your niche, but it's a need. You can pray. Another way you can donate. They've opened up a monthly giving program for as little as $10 a month. You can make a big impact by them being able to go into the students. You can go to thewhosoevers.com to sign up for that as well.
What is that? What's $10 a month? That's like 4 tacos?
Yeah, it's like 2 Starbucks coffees.
2 Starbucks. And you can help us.
Why you say tacos? I'm hungry.
We'll see you guys right after the break.
More Live with Ryan Ries coming up.
Is everything all right?
Call now, 1-888-564-6173. Or post your questions using the hashtag #LiveRyanReese on his Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
I think I speak for the entire administration when I say, whoop-de-doo.
Now, back to Live with Ryan Ries. Don't say we didn't warn you. Loud noises!
We are back, and I have my wife, Crystal Ries, in studio talking about her new book. What's it called?
Adventure on the Stormy Sea.
By the Ries triplets.
Ries triplets.
And we were just talking about our story of going through infertility for about a year and a half. After we were married for a year and a half, then we went through it for about a year and a half. And just seeking God's will, and we got hooked up with 3 babies, triplets, but it was a storm the whole way through. It was, bed rest. We thought we were going to lose them from 16 weeks on. And then God gave my mom a vision in one of our darkest nights. The vision was of Jesus' hand holding the babies in a stormy sea, and we knew that the kids were going to be okay, and we were going to get through this. And then by God's grace, we had the kids. And now there was a book that came out of it. It's a baby's book, and when you buy it, basically after a certain amount of them sold, we're going to be giving away, X amount to the NICUs, to the children's hospitals. There's no profit for our family at all. This is strictly 100% of the profits go to pushing free books out to the children's hospitals. So it's a great thing. Oh, and you could get them either tomorrow at Calvary Chapel Diamond Bar. At all 3 services, we'll be down there, or at Shine that evening at Calvary Chapel Diamond Bar as well. Or you can go to my website, ryan-reese.com, and you could purchase them there. They're good for baby showers, for people that are just having kids. I mean, anything. So, yeah.
If you're tuning in right now, again, this is Live with Ryan Ries, but if you want to call in now, as we've been talking about all these things, you find yourself maybe struggling having children. You see yourself struggling maybe in your marriage and different things. We're going to be talking about many things right now. The number is 888-564-6173. Again, the number is 888-564-6173. You can call us. We know the calls are coming in, but before we get to some of the calls, I want to ask Crystal and Ryan a question, because now as time's gone by so quick, as we've gone through this amazing, powerful story and so many things, all the emotions you guys gone through up to this point, but now the kids are here. 10 months old about, right?
Yes.
And now you guys have been married. You guys have been married about 3.5 years, and now you're looking at a different way of life. Life's totally changed now. Having 3 triplets, that's 3 car seats. That's, 3 cribs. That's like everything. The way you navigate through life has changed. But now you know that the importance of keeping your marriage balanced as well. And I'm sure that's tough. I'm sure there's a lot of testings you go through. Why don't you share with the audience about that, Crystal?
It's
Where do we start?
Oh my gosh, seriously. I pray every night just for like a good night's sleep, and then I thank God that none of my kids had to go to the ER that day or something. I mean, they put everything in their mouth, and I just,
we had a kid choke on Christmas.
Yeah. Now they pretend to choke because they know it gets my attention.
Oh yeah.
They go
clever kids. So, and they're what is it? They're very exquisite, right? Hyperactive. So they've got the Ries gene. Yeah,
good one.
All
Right?
3 of them. So
sorry, Kristen.
I'm constantly tired, basically. No, but they're starting to sleep through the night, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And every day is just a new day. I wonder how I'm going to get the strength, and God gives me the strength, and God brings the help, and God just does it all, because I don't even know where I'd be without him at this point.
No one understands unless you have triplets, even like twins. Like sometimes we have like a grandma take one of the kids. Like her mom lives right down the street from us.
Tonight, my mom and Steve have have Lily, and then Sadie and Evie are with a babysitter. And I'm like, 2 kids tonight. Whew, so
we're like,
has to be a
let's go to
breeze.
Disneyland. No big deal. The third throws everything off.
You don't have 3 hands. I mean, what are you gonna do? So,
but I just speaking in, just looking at my wife. This woman is like superwoman. She seriously, that verse, God won't give you more than you can handle. I would say it gets to that point to where we're like, we can't take any more, but then there's like that, I don't know, God just gives her the strength.
Yeah.
Because it's gnarly.
Yeah.
To be with 3 kids.
Yep.
All day, all night. And it's not 3 kids, it's the fact that there's 3 infants, 10-month-olds.
Yes.
That need the same attention. I mean, it's different if you have an older kid because you're like, hey, grab the bottle for, go grab a diaper for me. But when you got 3 and they're all, I'm hungry. I pooped.
Yeah.
We're all at the same time. You're just like, it's crazy.
A game changer. So a lot of time I talk to Ryan, late at night if we catch up because we're busy throughout the day. And sometimes the phone call's like, hey, I'm here. He has to whisper,
I'm on the night program.
Because he doesn't want to wake up the kids and stuff. Like, this whole thing has changed. And as you're saying through this whole story, I mean, there's probably a lot of lessons that God has taught you. I mean, you were on bed rest for a long time during that time, so you were having to just wait, be still, and I'm sure many of those things were preparing you for today, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just so surreal. It's so hard to really explain bed rest for 4 months or 3.5 months, and then people try to make you feel better, but they don't quite know what to say.
Yeah.
So, you just kind of try to, I feel like there's a verse about it. You just kind of go through your storms peacefully, quietly, I guess, just kind of dealing with it and talking to God a lot. And I mean, I can't tell you how many Bible studies I went through when I was sitting on bed rest. There was really nothing else to do, and you can't watch TV and read, and you just like Bible study over and over again, and you just have it on, just out loud. So you're maybe cleaning the kitchen, which I wasn't supposed to do, but you would just have it on in the background. And now the kids, in the morning, every time they wake up, they get K-Wave in the morning, and they get to listen to Chuck, and it's just awesome. It's just so great that I'm still able to incorporate, a devotional or, even just like just kind of have something, because I can't make it to church all the time like I used to. So
that's important, Crystal. And I think that's where I can connect with a lot of moms out there, because they go through this. So they're trying to manage a home. They're trying to take care of the children, and what was their norm. Going to church this day, it becomes an impossibility for a season. And how important it is to have that time, like make that time, which is hard, I'm sure.
Oh, so
well,
hard.
a lot of moms or fathers can very easily just go, I'm busy. I got games. I got kids. I don't got time for church. But Crystal can't make it to church right now at this point.
Well, every time we go to church, the kids get sick.
Well, yeah, the kids were sick for 2 months recently.
Right.
We're
So-
like, that's not going to happen right now until they get a little bit older. But the deal is, but she is making time for Jesus, though. That's the difference. Because sometimes it's easy. If you're not going to church, you could just kind of tune out and not read, not turn in, not listen to the radio or any Bible studies.
You know, what's important with that is like it's so easy. Now you get what you prayed for, what you wanted, and then you get this blessing. You don't want to take it for granted, right? You don't want to be like, okay, got this. Now I'm going to move on. Thanks, God. Because people do that. People are like, Lord, if you just bring that right person to me, I'll serve you with all my heart for the rest of my life, And then so you get that person, and that person becomes number one, and you forsake your relationship with the Lord. That happens sometimes. We were talking about that as we opened up the show. How important it is to have like the Lord number one in your life. 'Cause that's the only way. That's the only thing that made you get through this pregnancy.
Yep.
That's the only thing that sustained you. That's the only thing that's going to sustain all of us as God calls us to be. Have marriages and to raise children. They're testings, and all seasons are testings. Before I left tonight, my boy, you guys know my boys are crazy. They're full of power. And
Who, your boys?
Yes, full of power all
Never.
the time. Someone's always getting punched. Someone's always getting choked. And before I left, Uriah, we're potty training him right now, and I was telling Nicole, I'm going to go downstairs really quick. I left him with no clothes on upstairs because I wanted to be able to go to the toilet real quick. I go downstairs, and all I hear Nicole is like, yells my name. And I'm like busy playing with Cohen and Jet. Hear it again. Go up, and I go up. Yeah, he just peed all over our bed right before I left for the radio right now. Just
See,
all over the
Crystal, that
place.
could happen.
Oh my God.
You never know.
She had to take all the sheets out and everything.
How old is he?
No.
He's 2. He's 2, so this is the time right now.
Oh, wonderful.
We're getting the leather bed.
Oh my
You
God.
just wipe it down.
Yep, that's life, and it's amazing. Like you're gonna go through things as we go through things that are like they're gonna test us. And people out there, the listening audience, you might be going through something right now that's a major testing in your life. You don't think you're gonna make it through, whatever it might be, but we want to encourage you and let you know that with God it is possible. And like Ryan was saying a minute ago, like sometimes that verse, all things work together for good for those who love God and called according to your purpose, like I believe it, but like it's being hard to believe it right now because I just see bad. I don't see things working out. I'm stressed out. I'm upset. She's upset. I'm not going to make it. How is any good coming out of this? Right in this particular moment, there might not be. But that's where it comes to having a love relationship with God and a trust and a faith in the Lord. If you do want to call in tonight, the number is 888-564-6173, 888-564-6173.
There was one question that was up here. Do you guys remember what it said?
It had to do with her daughter. The daughter was been battling with this. Was it for 6 months or 6 years?
I think she's married for 6 years and struggling with infertility. San Bernardino.
Well,
So
since we didn't get the question, but
Yep.
it came up for a second. Look at seek God, ask God. You have not because you ask not. We gotta ask Him. When we ask Him, we gotta ask Him, Lord, we want Your will. We want to align ourselves with Your will, and then let Him work in your life. And if it's His will that you have these kids or a kid, then Thy will be done. If not, then we gotta prepare ourselves to accept it and know that all things work together for good for those that love Christ according to His purpose.
yeah, there were some nights, and I just wanted to say something after, I would just when we had the babies, I was just so upset, at the end of the day, because I'm sleep deprived and just never didn't get a shower, didn't get really to do anything for myself, and my prayers just turned into like help. I didn't even want to pray. You just get so frustrated with your situation, and that's, those were the nights where Ryan was just right there by my bedside praying. So for some of those, people out there, couples where the wife is over it or the husband's over it, that other person has to just jump in and be that prayer warrior, be there and pray, because sometimes I didn't even want to say amen. I was so upset, and I hate saying it, but I'm just that's the truth.
being
You're
real.
so you feel so defeated, and you're struggling, and you need to have that helpmate. You need to have that person by your side to just encourage you.
I think that's something that we can talk about, is that, you know, I even felt like that as well. Sometimes it's like we prayed, you're like, hey, God, we want kids. And we went through all this hell, and then all of a sudden we had them, and then all of a sudden it gets so gnarly that then you're like, God, like, why would you do that? Like, we prayed, we wanted kids, but like, man, this is just so much. It's like we're stressed out. Like for us, we have to have people come to our house. Like, if for Crystal to like take a shower, there has to be me and someone else with the kids. You can't have one person with the 3 kids. You have to have 2. So we have to have outside help coming in to help us offset the times to get things done. I mean, just to pay bills and stuff. I mean, you wouldn't even imagine like how much help you really need just to barely get through life at a very slow pace. But then you go to God, and you're like kind of mad, and you're like, God, dude, I love you, but man, like, this is like crazy. Like, what are you trying to do? But then it all boils back to like, God is working out his eternal purpose. And I thought about that story in Jeremiah where it talks about the potter on the wheel. You know, you guys probably heard Chuck Smith kind of break it down, where he talks about the potter on the wheel, where the potter's, you know, he gets the clay, and then he throws water on it, and he starts like shaping it, and it's on the wheel, and the wheel could be like your life. You know, the potter could be spinning the wheel, and the wheel could be going super fast and out of control. Like your life maybe feels like it's going super fast and out of control, or it could be going really slow. Like the wheel could be going really slow. But the whole moral of the story is that the clay is us. The wheel can be the speed of our life, if it's slow or fast, whatever situations are going on. But the potter is God, and he's in complete control of our life. And he is creating that clay into that vessel or that pot that he has a plan for it. And that's us. And sometimes he has to smash that clay down. He has to break it and remold it, and it doesn't turn out the way he wants it, so he has to break it down again. And God takes us through these situations in our life. Like I was telling Crystal today, I said, the Crystal that I married 3 years ago is a whole different Crystal. The Crystal that I know today, because she's grown with God, but then God has taken her out of her comfort zone and broke her, shaped her, molded her into this new creation, this new person that he has this plan for her now, starting now. But she can't see that right now because she's still in the thick of the storm.
That's right.
Where I get to go to work and I can kind of see things. I'm not like with the baby's 24 hours a day because I have to go to work. But I could see what's happening in her life. But it all goes back to all things work together for good for those that love Christ according to his purpose. And that's same purpose for each one of us. God takes us through these storms. James talks about it, but he perfects us. He shapes us. He molds us.
So important, everything you just said, because we just got through a major storm, as we've been talking about, through the high-risk pregnancy and everything that took place. Now, fast forward to today, you're raising those three triplets, and the testings now again. Like you said, now the clouds have come in again at times. There's testing that's going through. But what always is going to happen is as time goes by, we'll be able to have 20/20 vision when we look back and be like, you know what? I'm thankful that this happened in my life, you know, and I wouldn't want it any differently. That's how, if we are allowed the Lord to work in our lives like that, that's what's going to happen. And I think that's what's going to happen, Crystal. I think that this is going to be a shaping moment in your life. I think the time that you had when you were on bed rest was for a purpose, preparing you to have these triplets and all this aspect. Crystal, for the listening audience right now, how about a girl like in your particular situation, like almost if you were speaking to yourself and where you were at in your discouragement, what would you want to be heard at that time?
Wow. What would I want to be heard? Wow. That's a good question. I think that I just needed someone to be there to pray with me. I think that people can't relate to what you're going through. They don't know your situation. Every situation is different. Every situation. And you just want someone to be loving and supportive and pray with you.
Yeah.
And just kind of help carry you through. There were some very, very sweet women that did that. that's all they had to do.
Right.
You know, they didn't need to tell me that they could relate or anything like that. It was just sitting with me and praying with me.
Yep. Which is
Yep.
needed.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is needed in a lot of our lives sometimes.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's not words to say. And like just being around sometimes and being that encouragement and praying for the people in our lives like that can be a great encouragement. We do have a few more minutes, about 10 more minutes. If you wanted to call in, the number is 888-564-6173. Again, the number is 888-564-6173.
I'm on a Papa Chuck marathon today.
Uh-huh.
I heard him say this today. Prayer changes things,
Mhm.
and sure does.
Yep. And you know what prayer changes? A lot of times it changes us.
Yep.
That's the key. Because we don't
Changes
change
our heart.
God. We don't
Yeah.
change the direction that God has. It's just us aligning our will with the Lord,
Mhm.
you know? And the Lord wants us to call upon him. The Lord wants us to trust us with everything that we have.
Okay, we got Gabby. We're gonna go ahead and get Gabby on the air from
La-
La
Hi,
Mirada.
Sorry, hello?
How you
Hey.
doing, Gabby?
Oh, Gabby, we're here.
Uh-oh.
Gabby,
Trying to hang up on us. Don't hang up on us.
Gabby, do you hear me?
Let's see. Let's wait. Maybe
we'll-
she clicked
yeah.
over or something.
Yeah, we'll come back.
Give her a second.
She has a really cool question.
she does.
Comment.
Hello?
There
Oh, there
you
you
go.
are.
How you doing? You're on live with Ryan Ries. What's your question tonight, Gabby?
Hi, guys. I was hoping you can help me out. I also...
Uh-oh. We might have to just read it.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and just read it.
Yeah, let me read it. It says, she is married with twins, separated from her husband. The twins diagnosed with Down syndrome. I felt like a single parent for the first 2 years. We are getting counseling now through Calvary Chapel. How do you get past the resentment of feeling like you were doing it all alone? It's heavy. I mean, I think that as we are saying here, I think the greatest encouragement through our lives is always going to be in the Lord. You know, it's sorry for the situation that you're facing and what took place in your marriage, and we don't know the details of it. But even in that, you know, whether he left or whatever it was, God is going to be with you through this major storm of your life, has been with you up to this point. And I'm sure now, as the twins have been diagnosed with Down syndrome as well, God has called you. God has called you to be the mother of these children. God's going to give you strength to be the mother of the children. And the resentment that you're feeling, guess what? It's natural. You know, I think a lot of us would feel those emotions. A lot of us would be like, why me, Lord? And why did this guy leave? Or why did my marriage get, messed up in this? Those are all natural things to be wrestling with. But it's encouraging us in this aspect of like, God will go before you. God will see you through. I believe too that you're going to see God gave me exactly what I needed at the moment of my life right now to get me through it.
Resentment can go along even when you get bitterness or anger and any of these things. And the way you do that is you pray. Like we were saying earlier, prayer changes things. Prayer changes you. When you're going through this stuff, resentment, bitterness, angerness, whatever it is in your life, you have to pray. And I know I personally went through some bitterness and anger in my life. You got to pray and ask that God will change your heart.
Yes.
It has to be a supernatural
Yes.
work. Would you have anything to
It's
say?
really easy to start resenting your husband when you are sitting at home with kids,
Yeah.
sick kids, any kids, lots of kids, 24/7, and you've had to kind of sacrifice your interests and your, things that you enjoy for your kids and your family, and you can't let resentment creep into your marriage. You can't let it creep into your life, and you have to pray, and you have to surround yourself around like-minded people. You have to get yourself plugged into a church, and you need to get some time and enjoy your life too. I'm sorry, I have to say it though, because too many women don't go out and have some time for themselves. You got to get a babysitter for a couple hours, and you just have to get out and have a cup of coffee with a friend with no babies. But you also have to have your own individual identity.
Yeah, I think what's important to know is that during these times of testing, you might feel like you're all alone, but you're never alone. In the Bible says, one of the verses that Crystal mentioned earlier is that 2 Timothy 1:7 says that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and of a sound mind. And that's key. God's going to give you power to overcome the difficulty that you're facing. God's going to allow his love to overshadow all of your difficulties, where you say, God loves me, he's for me, he's not against me, and then he's able to grant peace of mind. And I believe in the testings of that you're going through of raising your children by yourself is an area where the Lord is going to show the deep riches of his grace and his mercy upon your life. And for those that are listening out there, maybe find themselves in the same situation or a similar situation, the same is true for you. God will, and that's why we wanted to do this whole show, is because God will show himself faithful and true to the end. And these testings that Ryan and Crystal have gone through, God is going to be using it for many different things in their lives. You going to read something, Ray?
No. I want to ask Crystal, any last words? We have a couple minutes left.
No, I mean, the one thing I wanted to say that I just think it's good is just marriage and making sure that through, if you have 1 kid or 2 kids or 10 kids, make sure that you go on date nights early on and often. I mean, I know it's hard to separate with your kids, but you can never blame your kids for not having a relationship with your husband. Your kids want to see you happy. They want to see a mom and dad. So just the one thing that Ryan and I have done is we have gone on date nights. I mean, it can't be every week sometimes, or maybe it's an hour car ride to church or whatever it is, but we make the time to make sure we're connecting, and we do it often, and it's important, and it's good.
It's so easy to get distracted and just let mom do kids and me go to work and come home. You know, it's so easy to like miss that whole.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like, oh, yeah, well, this makes sense. I'm the man. I got to go to work. I got to go do this. She's got the kids. She's busy doing that. But that's not good.
You have to make that time. This week, me and my wife were able to go out just to eat and go to the movies. And to us who are thinking the same thing, we have to continue making these times as well, because there's craziness sometimes throughout the week. You know, she goes through a lot of stuff being at home. And it's like when the Lord shows me those things, like, no, we got to get some time. I would call my mom, hey, Mom, can the kids come stay at your house for the night or something like that? Because what you're doing, just as you have to, grow your relationship with the Lord, you have to grow in your marriage as well, because that's going to be the strength. The Lord's the foundation. Your marriage has to be a part of that foundation. And then your children. You want to raise your children in the ways of the Lord. You want to be, because we are an example to our children. The way we treat our wives, the way wives treat their husband, that is the first relationship that your children are going to be able to see. And that's why you have to be able to have some focus on it.
Crystal, you're an amazing human.
You guys are great.
Go to whosoevers.com, or you can go to ryan-reese.com to pick up Crystal's book. Peace.
This has been Live with Ryan Ries. To connect or find out more about Ryan, click on ryan-reese.com. Check us out next Saturday at 9 p.m. for Live with Ryan Ries.